What is up, everyone? It is Tuesday night. I am joined by my good friend Aaron Van Buren for TCR Live. Aaron, how are you? Are you keeping warm?
Yeah, it's been. I went home for Christmas. It got down to probably it was actually minus 40 on Thursday night. Still not the coldest temperature I ever experienced. That was polar vortex 3 years ago in Chicago, where it was minus 60. So this is kind of like a walk in the park. But then I came home here to where I live in now Southwest Michigan. We had 2.5 feet of snow. So for the Midwestern lover that I am, it's right on mark. So I'm good.
Nice. Yeah, here in Georgia, it's 30s at night, 20s at night sometimes. I think we got down to the teens. No snow, but we're all cold here, but yeah, I know that's not, you call it, that's a nice brisk spring day for you, I know. But here in Georgia, we're not used to that. So yeah. But hey, the season marches on, and it's been obviously, as we all know, disappointing season, but there's still football. So the Cardinals played on Christmas night. So Cardinals fans, we didn't get presents this year. We got lumps of coal this season with the Cardinals. But they played a gutsy game against, a Tampa Bay team that's struggling. But when you're one field goal away from beating Tom Brady with your third string quarterback, I think there are some positives to take away from that in terms of the performance, even if the season overall is not good. But we're going to talk about that game, and we're also going to talk about the news today that JJ Watt announced that he would be retiring at the end of the season on Twitter. He mentioned that Koa's first game, his new baby boy, his first NFL game ever, was JJ Watt's last ever home game. And he says, my heart is filled with nothing but love and gratitude. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure. So obviously, everyone, has kind of been talking about JJ Watt. I did a video talking about his impact, his legacy with the team, and why I think he retired. I think it's pretty straightforward. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's say hey to some of the folks that are in the chat. We've got Grandizer in the chat hanging out with us, who's always doing a great job holding down the chat and getting our links in there. Thank you, Grandizer, for everything we do. We have Tony Height in the house saying AVP in the house. So glad to have Aaron Van Buren back with us. I'm glad to have you hanging out with us, Tony. I know you're not always able to be here with the live streams, but you always listen to after the fact, which reminds me, I actually have set up a Cardinal Rule podcast. You can find it on Apple Podcasts and Google. And for now, what I'm going to be doing is uploading the audio from these live streams as podcasts. So if you prefer listening to a podcast rather than watching, the live stream, you will now have access to that if you go and subscribe. And at some point, I hope to do some regular podcast content on there. So please be sure to check that out, subscribe, and you can get your Cardinal Rule live streams there as audio. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, thanks for finding us. So let's get into the game, though. Let's start with the game against Tampa Bay on Christmas night. Aaron, what were some of your observations from that game? What were some of the things that stood out to you, good, bad, or otherwise? And Tony's asking on Spotify. Yes, it is on Spotify as well, so it is there. So anyway, what were some of the things that stood out to you about the game against Tampa Bay?
It's not very often I get to actually see a game on a physical TV. Usually I'm streaming through a laptop, and so to be home and have a big screen was nice. But it also just kind of like, well, here's a nice big present to this, unsurprisingly not underperforming team. And I have a saying that I think I've used it in the Discord chat. Also, shameless plug for the Discord. Make sure you're in there. The last 2 weeks about like who's ready to get disappointed today, and it's like, I mean, we say it every week. It's a new way to find to lose games, and it's a lost season with Murray being hurt. But getting to it, it was just more of the same. Saw a lot of confusing play calls. timeouts were still, I think we took a timeout at like halfway through the first quarter. And I mean, the halftime score will tell you it all. It was 6-6, and you're not getting a lot of production out of that. Yeah, I know it's Trace McSorley's first game, and props to him for performing as well as he did, or however you want to phrase that. But I think that one of my takeaways is that we really need to, I know it sounds crazy, I think revamp the wide receiving core. Because for whatever reason, DeAndre Hopkins isn't getting the ball. We're paying him all this money. Greg Dortch looks like he's a veteran Pro Bowl wide receiver. And I think that it wouldn't be crazy to say that Greg Dortch would be a top 3 wide receiver on this depth chart come next season. Because I don't see anybody else making a play for that outside of, Hollywood Brown and Hopkins. So I think there's got to be more just sense of urgency and like just smarter play calls overall from Cliff. And there's a bunch of other stats that I could get into, but I see you got a super chat down there. So.
All right. Well, yeah, let me real quick shout out the super chat to from D'Lo. Happy holidays. Much love to you and the Cards fam. Thank you, D'Lo, for the super chat. Thank you for being a great support of the channel. Happy holidays to you. I hope you and your family and friends are doing well. Hope you have a good, safe New Year's. And on a note, I'm going to the game in Atlanta, the Cardinals game in Atlanta. So if you're going to be there, yeah. So if you're if you are going to the Atlanta Cardinals game, please jump in the Discord and send me a message in there. I'd love to, I'm going to try to catch up with people at the stadium. But yeah, so happy holidays. Real quick, JP's here. Thank you for being here. Will Hollywood play without an extension? I think he will. I do. But we'll see. Agent 47 here. Thanks for hanging out with us. What's up? So yeah, let me kind of give, my thoughts on the receiving core. Cause there's been some concerns and some issues. I mean, Hopkins, I think Hopkins last year, they were spreading the ball out before he got injured, so he didn't get as many targets, but the team was playing really well at that time, distributing it. So that's kind of a weird thing. This year, it's kind of weird because when he came back, he was one of the leading receivers in the NFL until this last game, but Trace McSorley is your quarterback and they had to, and he was trying to throw it to him, but he just couldn't get it. So it's weird. There's just a lot of weirdness with this. And Greg Dortch, listen, I'm with you that he needs to be a bigger part of this offense. When they play him, like he puts up 10 catches for 98 yards, and that's not the first game he's had like that. They need to play him more. I know people are tired of wait and see, but I want to see this receiving core like together intact with an offensive line that is not decimated before I kind of decide what needs to be done. Now, listen, I love Rondale Moore. The health has been an issue. If he's healthy, he's really good. But he can't stay healthy, right? So for me, I mean, I want to see Hopkins as the number one. I want to see Marquise Brown on the other side across from him. I want to see Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch getting touches in the slot. If Rondale isn't healthy, then Greg Dortch needs to be, getting all those slot touches and targets. If Rondale Moore is healthy, they still need to get Dortch in there, rotate him in. And I want to see that. I know this season, I don't want to say it's a total mulligan because there's some things that have gone wrong that they I think should have done better. But I want to see this receiving core intact for a full season before I kind of start talking about totally revamping it, because I think the players are there. I don't know, but that offensive line though needs to be revamped for sure. I'll give you a chance to respond to that. Let me real quick say hey to some of the folks who jumped in here, though. We've got Mikey, Desert Cardinals. What's up? Thank you for being here. Appreciate you jumping in, hanging out with us. We have Jordan P. Cliff has said Dortch needs to work on understanding what to do in every play. He got benched for causing that INT versus Niners when he was supposed to sit in the zone and he didn't. Yeah, Jordan P has a point. Like I listen to the press conferences. I always watch those when they post them on the Cardinals, and he was asked about Dortch, and he said, when he's in there, he can make those plays, but there have been some, and I think there's things we don't see as fans. We're making mistakes or not knowing what to do, and maybe he makes those plays when they're thrown to him, but then he also messes up. So I get that, understand that, and that, people. I think the same thing goes for the rookie pass rushers. People like, why weren't they played more? And Vance Joseph talked about in his press conference as well. With young pass rushers, they start over pursuing, and then just getting pushed back past the pocket, and they don't get anywhere until they start getting that down. And I do think they see what happens in practice, we don't. And I do think we're seeing more of those pass rushers now because they're getting it more. And I think we're seeing Dortch now part because of the injuries, but hopefully he's getting it more. But I want to see more of them next year. And even if they're making mistakes, they, get them in there, let them work through those mistakes. So I'll shut up though and let you kind of respond to that, Aaron.
I can agree with, basically, trying to see what this offense really can be, sans suspension and then injuries and then, whatever else is going on. But in order to make that happen, there has to be complementary football played with the Cardinals, and that hasn't happened. And as great as James Conner is at scoring touchdowns, he is not a workhorse back. I mean, there isn't somebody that we can get, to play from the 20 to the 20. We need someone who can be a workhorse inside there. And don't say Chase Edmonds, comment section. That is not an acceptable answer. We need to find someone who can do that. I feel James Conner still needs to be kept, obviously, but there needs to be someone else who, it's funny because I've been saying for a long time, the Cardinals need a power back. And now we got one. And now we need a speed back or somebody else who's just kind of, I don't know, a Tony Pollard, or whoever else you want to put like there. Find that first, because then this offense will have a better chance at that. And secondly, I also think the Cardinals, they got to fix something on defense. I've been a big Vance Joseph, kind of supporter or truther, apologizer, whatever the term is, for a while. But when the Cardinals are, I think it was 30th in point differential at minus 83, something's going wrong. And I know it's a team game and everything, but the defense has got to be a little, at least inside the 20s if you got to have a chance at a playoff spot. So that's my response.
No, that makes sense. And I will say, I mostly agree with you, on the running back. I think people are underselling how good Connor has been. He in terms of just the way he kind of breaks tackles and pushes the pile and what he does on short yardage. And he can make some plays sometimes between the 20s, but in a perfect world, he is part of a 2-back kind of rotation, right? And, we're not bringing back Chase Edmonds. I think Chase Edmonds was good in that role, but we need someone in that role, someone like Chase Edmonds. JP is saying in the chat, I thought it would have been Eno, and it might have been if there weren't kind of the blow up behind the scenes. Right. And what we need, I think, is somewhere on early day 3 in the draft, I think 4th or 5th round, take a running back. Tony Pollard, you mentioned that name. He's a guy, I think it was a 4th round pick, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of good running backs in that 4th and 5th round like that. And, I think what you need to do is draft. And if you look at the video I did in terms of how I would fix the Cardinals, I have running back as a position I'm taking on day 3. I like Keontae Ingram's potential. He hasn't, he's still a rookie. I want to see more from him. He's a little more that bigger back. we need someone who's more that receiving back. And so I think Ingram is a guy they need to kind of keep developing to be Connor's replacement as the big back a couple years from now. And they need to draft someone who's going to be that change of pace back, the receiving back, the faster guy. And they need to kind of rotate Connor and that person they draft. So that I that's kind of what I think about. All right, I agree with you though. We need someone else with him, so that he can really kind of more do what he's really best at. Jordan P in the chat saying totally agree. Connor is better than giving credit for, but you got to have an explosive back with him that can run outside zone and have some type of breakaway speed. Completely agree. I think that's absolutely something they have to address this offseason. I like drafting someone, but they might, because you don't want to rely too much on a rookie. I could see them bringing in a free agent, someone not maybe terribly expensive, but someone like that. But yeah, I think they need to do something with that. Mikey is saying we need a duo threat back who can catch and run and stay healthy. So we have a question from Mikey Desert Cardinal saying, with 2 games left, what do we have to lose playing them a lot more? And I agree. What do you think? I mean, I think we, at this point, every rookie and young player, Dortch isn't a rookie, but as a younger player, every player that we hope will be part of this future, let's get them snaps. Let's see what they can do. Both of the pass rushing rookies, I say start them. Tristan Hill, I want to see more of him. I think he could be a good depth defensive tackle. Obviously, Greg Dortch. Obviously we're seeing, Trey McBride. I'd like to see more of Lacita Smith on the offensive line. Get him more snaps. It's going to be ugly, but let's get them snaps. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I had a little bit of a cutout there, so I'm going to pick up as much as I can off your question. I think that based off the article I wrote, on the banner right below here at AZ Sports Underground, that the Cardinals should just basically tank for the rest of the season. And tank could be a harsh word for just basically saying play your rookies and see what you got, because that's how you can really gain some insight there. And especially like there are teams that, could do that, AKA like Green Bay with Jordan Love, but they refuse to do it. And they just keep kicking the can further down the road. It's just only going to end up, blowing up in their face. So I say play as many rookies as you can, really evaluate them for the first time, and then let the rookies play. Because in Arizona, if you get drafted, you might as well just go home, because you won't play till the next year unless you're needed. So I can get on board with that, and yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, Goblinicus is saying, has Connor been successful in AZ because of scheme or because of his grit? I think it's because of his talent. When he's been, I mean, he was a good running back in Pittsburgh. He's always been, that guy who can run with power. He's had some health issues at points, but he's a guy that is a productive back in the NFL. He, and I don't think there are many better power backs. There's only a couple, that are better at, the power running game. But I don't think he's durability wise a guy that, like you say, he's not the bell cow that, in my opinion, that you get 300 carries or whatever. You want him to have 150-ish carries, I think, maybe a little bit more, possibly if he's healthy, and rotate him. But when you have him, when you need those tough yards, man, no one's better on this. I mean, there's not many better at getting that. I think he deserves the credit. He was good before he got here. And Jordan P is responding, to that. Both, he naturally faces lighter boxes with the mobile QB and taking the ball out of RPO, and that helps too, for sure. But I think he's a running back who would be effective in any system. So Dilo saying, I'm proud of one thing. After Christmas, the Broncos totally gave up on their coach and surrendered their pride. However, the Cardinals fought hard at home and showed heart. They didn't lie down like on K2. Listen, I will say, I see you giving the whatever, kind of poo-pooing that. I don't know. Listen, yes, they lost, but I don't know. I don't know if there's another game this season that I'm more proud of what I saw from the Cardinals, because they're out of the playoffs, starting a third string quarterback. It would be very easy um for players just kind of check out, and to be within a field goal of beating Tom Brady with a third string quarterback, and the defense played really well. I think they they showed a lot of heart. I mean, it's not perfect, but
Did.
I was proud of what I saw out there in terms of their efforts. Not that they need my approval. Yeah, we would have liked to come out with the win. Although, if you're for the Tankathon, maybe this was the perfect game, right? They played hard, they showed some grit, but didn't get the win. So I don't know. I sense though that you don't feel the same way, Aaron.
No, because I see similarities in a lot, and stay with me on this one. I see a lot of similarities between the McCaskey family and the Bidwell family. The McCaskeys have never fired a coach midseason. I don't think the Bears ever have. And I don't know if the Cardinals ever have in my relative short, duration of being a fan for 18 years. But my thing is, like, if you're going to make a change, then you want to start a new regime, new generation, then maybe it does start with that. Maybe it's a wake-up call to show everyone that, hey, like, no one's untouchable here, and complacency wouldn't be accepted if that's the way you wanted to go. I totally understand not doing it, and trying to figure out what you have in the players as well. But for me, if I was the owner of the Cardinals, I would have made this decision a long time ago and just bit the bullet on the money, because the one thing that you don't want to have happen is fans not start showing up to games, which has already kind of started to begun happening. And I'm not saying that by retaining Cliff, the attendance is going to go down, but in a way that you want to try to prevent that and keep as many red, black, and white jerseys in the stadium as possible. And I know a lot of the fans would probably move on from Cliff if they had to. So, those would be my decisions with that. I can see both sides, though.
Now, for what it's worth, I think what D'Lo is saying here is he's proud of the players for not giving up on their coach, right? He's talking about how, like, the Broncos kind of laid an egg, and the Cardinals in this game fought hard. And I think that's not a statement necessarily for the Michael Bidwill, and maybe I do think Cliff deserves some credit for how he's acted with the players, how he's been consistent. Maybe there's some schematic things that I have concerns with, but, like, I think what D'Lo is really saying here is that he's proud of the way the players didn't give up, that they hung in there, and I would agree with him. But so let's see. Okay, and D'Lo's saying yes, that's exactly what he's saying. So I've got a vote of confidence there. So so let's I think the defense deserves some credit. You talked about Vance Joseph, kind of being an apologist, and and I think, man, that defense, there were some good. Obviously, we know JJ Watt had a great game, but there's some other players, like Isaiah Simmons had 11 tackles. Ben Neiman had 10 tackles. I know people are down on Ben Neiman, but he's actually been a solid backup rotation player for us. He's one of our better graded defenders. That's not a high bar, but still, I mean, Marco Wilson. I'm just telling you, Marco Wilson is becoming a player. People need to start getting excited about Marco Wilson, but we'll talk about that more, right? But it wasn't a fun game to watch. The offense, James Conner ran hard, but the offense couldn't do much more than that. The defense looked good, but we're looking for next year, right? It's nice. Cameron Thomas, we saw some nice stuff from him. So we've got a couple of folks who jumped in here. Cali Kid, Cardinals are supposed to lay eggs. They're birds, Bird City, baby. I'll tell you what. I think the reason this year has been cursed is the new hashtag Bird City Football. That's I know others have started a petition to revoke that, and I co-sign on that. So We've got Austin Hoy. Thanks for being here. What do you think about Simmons thriving in the slot? Yeah, Aaron, what do you think about that? Because he's taken a lot of snaps in the slot lately, and I think that's a really interesting kind of development with him. What are your thoughts on that?
So basically, is asking how he'd be is basically more of a secondary player than a box linebacker.
Well, he's been playing a lot in the slot lately, so I think he's kind of asking, how do you feel about that he's playing well there? I'm sorry, I think we're having a little bit of a delay.
Great. I mean, the thing that you got me?
You're good. Good.
Okay. I'm all for it. The thing is, the Cardinals for the longest time didn't have a linebacker that could cover. I mean, just go back and think to all the years that tight ends would carve us up. And thankfully, the tight ends haven't really been doing that kind of damage now. It's just been missed assignments and stuff underneath, which is, as a defense, I guess if you'd have to take something, I'd rather take stuff underneath than deep shots down the field. But I know Simmons has been this kind of player since we drafted him. He still was the right choice at the time because we needed one badly, and he's been proving it. And I'm glad that kind of, the Isaiah Simmons is no good train is kind of slowing down here, because he's proven his worth. And I think him, and actually Zaven Collins, somebody who I did not like, is they're starting to turn the corner. But they've still got a long way to go. But I would like to see Simmons play that slot more.
Yeah, and like, for example, in this last game, of his 77 snaps, 55 of them were playing at slot. With PFF, they designate a player's position based on where they've played the most snaps. And it's been interesting because I've been watching Simmons, his positional designation throughout the season. And it started out at linebacker, and then it went to cornerback, or went to safety, and now it's at cornerback. And they don't manually change that. They just, wherever he's got the most snaps, it just kind of puts him at that position. So right now he has had the most snaps at really, it's slot corner. He's had, through the season, he has had 373 snaps at slot corner, 262 in the box, which is both a strong safety or a linebacker, either of those combined, 106 at D line, which includes edge rusher. So that's primarily edge rusher, and 26 at outside cornerback, 11 at free safety. So he's played more snaps at slot corner than any other position. Part of me wonders how much of that is just because of injuries and necessity, but he's playing well there. And and the issue with him has been, trying to find a position and kind of letting him thrive there. And he's been thriving. And in fact, this last game where he had those 55 snaps at slot corner, had his second best PFF grade of the season with an 83.7. His best was against Minnesota when he had an 87.7. Another game, he played 29 in the slot there on that game. So, I think it's interesting. I don't know that he's a prototypical slot corner. He's kind of big for that. He's more of a prototypical safety, but it's going to be interesting, what they do with him. Keith Davis has got a question here. With the Chargers making the playoffs, that likely reduces the chance of Sean Payton going to the Chargers, and the Broncos seem like a bigger dumpster fire than the Cardinals. Do you think he may come here? That's interesting. Now, it was a couple tweets went out that the betting lines have Arizona now as the favorite, at least in the betting, for where Sean Payton will land. Now, betting lines are also a function of a couple things, where they think something's going to happen, but it's also, they shift those lines based on where people have been betting to try to adjust the action. So you have to be cautious about how you read into those things, because it might have just shifted in part because so many people are betting and I'm going to Arizona. They want to, adjust the odds so more people bet on other places. But So what do you think though, in terms of the whole Sean Payton sweepstakes and how what's going on with the Chargers and the Broncos, impacts the potential of him coming to Arizona?
Well, I think the thing that would probably work against the Broncos is I'm pretty sure it was the Broncos GM came or somebody higher up came out and said that we believe Russ is quote fixable end quote.
Mhm.
And I'm just kind of like, okay, so would you rather go with somebody who's been deemed broken and on the downside of their career, or would you come be with a guy who is technically, I guess, being repaired, but he's still in the prime of his career and has the ability to, be an absolute weapon at the
Mhm.
quarterback position. So I think that's going to work in the Cardinals' favor. I also think it's the Cardinals' personnel plays to a little more of what Sean Payton really did. Quick swing passes. Dare I even say like a West Coast offense kind of vibe. Whereas Russell is that probably one of the last of stay in the pocket quarterbacks. Yeah, he still has his rollout and play action boot game, but he's not running back like it's 2015, 2016 anymore. So I think personnel wise, the Cardinals are a better fit, but the Cardinals have only gotten really lucky, I would say, with one coach since I've been a fan, and that was with Bruce Arians. So hopefully the
Mhm.
Broncos conduct a fake press conference with, Mr. Payton, and then he comes to Arizona.
Yeah, like the Chargers making the playoffs, I don't think they're going to fire their coach. That would be surprising. And then the Broncos, yeah, I mean, the roster aside from Wilson is not bad. They've got some nice pieces there defensively. They've got some nice playmakers on offense. But Wilson, if of course they're going to say he's fixable because if you can't get him right, they are in a really bad situation because he's got a long contract extension, but he's old, and so if he's really lost it, that is a mess. So they're going to say that. It's interesting. Like I think Wilson's the kind of quarterback Sean Payton wouldn't mind working with in a vacuum in terms of his skill set, in terms of what he's done in the past. But the problem is, I don't think he wants to go into a situation like that where with an aging quarterback who's he retired. He I don't know. I think he wants to go somewhere where he's going to get to be on the front end of a quarterback's career, not the back end, like he was with Breeze
Yeah.
towards the end there. So I think that probably helps the Cardinals' chances a little bit. So I think that makes sense. Let me say hey to a few more people who jumped in here. We've got Eric Wallace hanging out with us. Thank you. Appreciate you being in here with us. Let's see. And then let's see. I think that's the only person who jumped in with a comment. And then yeah, the Saints are asking. They're putting out that they want a first round pick or more. Will they get that? Maybe not. There's precedent for people keep talking about the Bruce Arians. I think we like a 6th round pick we gave up for or got for him or something. But there's also precedents like John Gruden and got like a sizable kind of trade package. And I think Sean Payton is not. I don't think you're getting him for a 6th round pick. You might have. I mean the Saints might not budge, but I could see maybe it being a day 2 pick. It's hard to know. But yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens with all of that. The Sean Payton sweepstakes is still on everyone's mind. So there's there's a lot of questions up in the air. There's some players that we want to see more of, but I want to shift and talk about JJ Watt. Watt announced, like I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, that he is going to retire after this season. And like I said, I did a video talking about that. Aaron, what are your thoughts on JJ Watt's retirement, his contributions on his time with the Cardinals, and anything else you want to say about JJ Watt as he's announced his retirement?
Well, I would like to say thank you to JJ Watt for choosing us There are a lot of other teams that he could have gone to, whether you want to label as title contenders or, other teams that you as an individual just think would be, dumb, or you don't like the team. I think it said a lot about where the Cardinals were at that time, and especially with the kind of firepower that they had. But they had a meteoric fall, and thus here we are. I think that he was worth every penny. He showed a class as a Cardinals player that we haven't seen since Larry left. And there's two people in this NFL world that I guess three that I don't think you can really hate: Larry Fitzgerald, JJ Watt, and I guess Marshawn Lynch. For just the way that they are as humans. Okay, now if when they're on the field, Marshawn Lynch, debatable, but whatever. I digress.
He's entertaining,
and yes, and I think the humor is what got a lot of people to be a fan of him. Me too, even across enemy lines. As someone who, is also from Wisconsin, he's meant a lot to, our state. And, he's had an incredibly tough career with all the injuries. And don't forget, he was booed by Texans fans when they picked him in 2011. And he turned into one of the best pass rushes we've seen since Lawrence Taylor, and he did it from an interior position. So, congrats to JJ. Thanks for putting, Wisconsin high school football on the map. We're going to have a Hall of Famer, and it sucks that we couldn't get you a ring, but I'm sure as hell happy that he signed with us. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I mean, JJ Watt I liked JJ Watt before he came to the Cardinals, and when he came here, I was just so excited. It's one of those players that I'm glad I got to root for him for a couple seasons, as a Cardinal. What he brings off the field and on the field, his character, his leadership. As much as Hard Knocks, has been frustrating and challenging and difficult to watch, I'm glad we got to see some behind the scenes of JJ Watt in his last season, and just his involvement. And I think, I think, and I talked about this in the video I did about this, I think for the leaders on this team that are becoming leaders, the younger players, the Zaven Collins, the Isaiah Simmons, the Jalen Thompsons, I think he helped show them how to do that, right? So they got to see what he does. And I think that's going to have a lasting impact. But we also talked about on the field, Zach Allen, the season he's had this year, I think Watt, helped in terms of his development. What we're seeing from Cam Thomas, I think JJ Watt has, like you said, been worth every penny in terms of the impact he's going to have on this organization. And I'm glad we got to cheer for him here. Jay in the Bay, a San Francisco 49ers content creator and a really good dude. Thanks for being here, Jay. Appreciate you dropping in here. What's good, TCR? I hope you had a fun-filled Christmas and wish you a happy new year. Thank you likewise to you and your family, good sir. JJ Watt, a beast, one of the best D linemen in the last 20 years. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for dropping in. I appreciate you, Jay. Really good dude. Easy News Steroids, thanks for hanging out with us. What the hell? Where's my notification? Sorry, Jen, I don't know. Sorry about that. Goblinicus says, having Watt last year really made me think the 7-0 start was legit. It felt special to me. It was heartbreaking now. It ended, though. Yeah, I mean, listen, remember the quote, and, maybe we're just effing better. Like, listen, okay, so we didn't end up being down the stretch, but that as a Cardinal, as a fan, I just believe, I don't know, to me, fandom is about moments. It's about memories and moments. And even though the season went south, that was a moment. Maybe we're just effing better. Yes. Was a moment that I'm always going to remember as a Cardinals fan. And I appreciate JJ Watt for that moment. Right. And so I agree.
Could you imagine? Sorry. Could you just imagine if we had gone all the way and won it and just being able to say that for the rest of our lives? It would have been incredible.
There would have been t-shirts. Right. There would have been t-shirts. Speaking of which, if you didn't notice behind me and on me, there are now TCR t-shirts. I'm going to be giving some of these away here and there in the off season. And if you want to purchase one, they are available for sale. $30 includes shipping and the shirt. So just a little plug there. If you're interested and you want a t-shirt, message me in Discord, and then we can sort that out. But yeah, but there's my little plug. But yeah, like that. Imagine if we had taken that all the way, that would have been right. Absolutely. A moment that we would all remember, and I'm still going to remember for what it was. Let's see a couple other comments. Agent 47, I feel bad for JJ. I want us lose his 2 games, but he deserves to win the final 2 games. Okay, so Agent 47 is saying he feels bad because from a tanking draft position perspective, Agent 47 is saying he wants us to lose the 2 games, but JJ deserves better, right? So, hey, that's fair, right? Goblinica saying, yeah, one of the best all-around good guys in the NFL. Watt and Fitz are 2 of the all-time best that never got a ring, 100%, right? Yeah, that's a Cardinals quote for life now, 100%. So, yeah. So I agree. Like the lasting impact of JJ Watt for the fan base, for the team. So glad we got to cheer for him for a bit, for sure. Any other thoughts? And that, in fact, actually, we've got a comment in here, and I think if you want to add more on JJ Watt, but also D-Lo is saying, Lord, I hope we have a new GM for next draft. It's going to be so valuable and important with that top 5 pick looks like we're going to have. So is anything else you want to say on JJ Watt? Or the next topic I want to talk about for a few minutes is thoughts on directions for the offseason, like what we need to do. And listen, okay, new coach. If a lot of people are wanting a new coach. If that's your position, okay, let's say that's a given. If it's a new coach, if you want to keep Cliff, then okay, that's fine. But let's talk about what I'm saying is let's talk about the players side of things. Okay, the coach thing is what's going to happen is going to happen. But like, what do we need to do in terms of the off season, Aaron?
Well, I would definitely say I can give you a handful of moves I'd make right now.
Okay.
I would ditch Robbie Anderson. I would find a way to get rid of Rondale Moore. I don't think he's a fit here. You could trade him to a wide receiver hungry team in Green Bay, Chicago, Baltimore, where Andy Isabella is playing right now, I might add.
Is he playing though?
He got elevated for a practice squad. So this is Andy Isabella things we're talking about. Maybe they'll throw him one fly route and then that'll be it. I don't know. We talked about that a long time ago. And then I already said earlier in the video of the pod, whatever you're listening to, got to get a workhorse running back. And yes, I do agree with the GM thing, but I still think the biggest thing is the O-line. I think I even wrote before I left Raising Zona, I think it was headed into the 2021 season. Like the offensive line was still the part that they needed to help Murray the most. And when Rodney Hudson was healthy, it was great for the most part. But right guard, right tackle started to become an issue. Then Will Hernandez has kind of been up and down. And if you've been in the Discord, everybody knows who I've been pounding the table for in the first round. Peter Skoronsky out of Northwestern. Bias aside, I think he'd be a great fit. You can move him inside. I have no worries that dude would be a solid addition to the Cardinals offensive line and help Kyler Murray get the time that he needs. So those would be my first moves I'd make in the offseason.
Yeah, like I think I agree with a lot of that, but not all of it. But I mean, fixing the offensive line is a must. Absolutely have to fix the offensive line. I don't think you have to go after big name guys to do that. You really what you need is 5 competent offensive linemen. I think PFF folks talk about this a lot. Like if you have your choice between having 1 or 2 elite offensive linemen and then some bad offensive linemen, or 5 solid offensive linemen, take the 5 solid ones, right? You don't need to go big money, right? I think you keep. I mean, I know we talked about this a lot. I know going from left tackle to right tackle is quite. Can it work for Josh Jones? I know that's tricky, but players do it sometimes. But you've got 2 starting tackles in DJ Humphries and Josh Jones. You need to find a way to get both of them at tackle. I think you bring in back Will Hernandez. I don't think he's being terribly expensive. You get a center and you get another guard, and you find a way to have 5 starting guys. They don't have to be elite, but they have to be legit starting players. You have to fix that. And then you've got a couple of comments, and Teddy LBZ saying out with the old and with new, let Maje and Cam develop. I'm on board with letting those 2 play. I know a lot of people want to go after a big time edge rusher. I actually think, and easy no steroids here, either pay or draft a stud defensive line, then pay stud offensive line. I think what you do is you get an elite interior defensive lineman who can have some pass rush, like Jalen Carter, like first round, if you get him in the top 5. And what you do is if you can shore up that interior pass rush, and that gives those outside Sanders and Thomas a little more leeway. They're not going to get double teamed. They're going to have a little more, freedom. It takes the pressure off of them, right? Gives them room to develop. So for me, rather than investing heavily in another edge rusher who you might then have a log jam with with the Sanders, Thomas, and whoever you bring in. Let Sanders and Thomas go as the starters, and invest in the interior where you have to replace JJ Watt anyway, right? So have Zach Allen, have whoever you're getting in the interior, shore that up. So that's kind of the direction I'm going with that. Easy No Steroids is agreeing, right? But listen, there's different ways to do that. I like Skoronski as a prospect, and like if they drafted him, I think he's going to be good, and I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a bad pick. I just more from a draft strategy perspective, I just don't want to I think the only offensive linemen you should take in the top 10, top 15 even are tackles. He's a tackle, but we don't need a tackle. And if we draft him and play him at tackle, we're wasting Humphries or Josh Jones. Like if you have a player who's an NFL caliber starter, you don't draft someone to play ahead of them. So it's not about Skoronski as much as it's like how to make that work. So for me, I'd rather take like Jalen Carter and get a center in round 2 and a guard in round 3, maybe, if you want to do that. But it's no hate on Skoronski. It's just about the roster side of things, right? I think he's a great player, and he can move inside, but I don't want to take a guard in top 5. That's just me. But I don't hate the player. So, but yeah, and let me get a couple of comments, and then we'll have you jump in. We got Robert G. Thanks for being here, Rob. Appreciate you. Cliff don't know how to use Rano more. I think we should keep more. I think we should keep more, at least through his rookie deal. And if a guy has shown flashes and promise, and he has shown that when he's healthy, he's really good. I get he hasn't been healthy, but when he's healthy, the dude can make plays. You keep them through their rookie deal, and you give them every chance for it to pay off. Andy Isabella, we got rid of him, towards the end there, but there weren't enough flashes. So I'm keeping Rondale Moore. Do you pay him more? Do you keep him around? If he can't stay healthy, you don't necessarily extend him for much money or at all, but I don't want to move on from him, but I understand where you come from. Let's see. Easy No Steroids saying, yeah, edge and backers are good enough. Just need defensive interior. Let's see. We've got who else has jumped in here. Okay, I think that's it. All right. I'll let you jump in there though, Aaron.
That's a lot to think about. Maybe I could be talked into, having Rondale Moore stay. Whoever mentioned that comment, I have terrible short-term memory. You made a good point. Maybe a different coach would actually implement him the right way, like we saw against the Vikings. Yes, thank you, Robert G. Like we saw against the Vikings week 2 of the 2021 season. That's the Rondale Moore that we thought we were going to get. But it also at the same time, I'm still mixed on it. So, but I'll leave the door open at this point. Yeah. Robert, you talked me into that. So congratulations. And then the other thing, about trying to take a defensive lineman is if it's a guy that's going to have a Jordan Davis kind of impact on a game, or Trayvon Walker for the Jags. If there's a guy like that on the board, then yes, the Cardinals should take him. Now, I'll admit I have not watched any lick of film for these guys yet. So all I know is about the edge rusher from Alabama being really good. What's his name again?
Will Anderson.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll fall to us. I don't even know if the Cardinals will pick him, but and that's the other thing right there. What about trading out of the top 5? I mean, I'm not talking about getting out of the top 10, but moving on down 2 or 3 spots, you could pick up an extra second. Maybe sometimes you could fleece a first. Maybe kind of something in the draft like that, and we pick up somebody, or 2. We get a better price or a better pick. So, it's so much to talk about. It's like we need a whole mock draft Monday to really get into it,
which we will be doing sooner rather than later. But yeah, so Jordan P has this comment: if you can't get Will Anderson and Jalen Carter, you trade down out of the top 5. I like Myjai and Cam, but you don't pass Will Anderson for them if he is there and Carter isn't. And listen, I know Will Anderson is this blue chip edge rush prospect, and I have nothing negative to say about him. I mean, he's from everything I'm hearing and seeing, he's worthy of a top 5 pick. So it's one of those things where if they take him, I'm not gonna say it was a bad move, because I get the idea you take that guy. I just, with how I like to build rosters, I like taking my edge rushers on day 2, maybe day 3, develop them, which is what they did with Thomas and Sanders. And again, get that interior defensive lineman. That's me. And if Will Anderson, and I like the idea of trading back. There's going to be teams that want quarterbacks, like Carolina and and Atlanta potentially. If you trade back to maybe number 8, and add a 2nd round pick and maybe another pick for doing that, and you still might end up getting someone like Keely Ringo, or some other a really good player, a stud, but you've added a 2nd round pick, so I think moving, trading out might also be potentially the move. I will say, for me, the only 2 players I really like, if the Cardinals pick in the top 5, the only 2 players I really would take at that spot would be Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. And I would lean towards Jalen Carter because what I like about the position. And Jordan P makes a point here. Cam Thomas can move inside and out plan. He has been moving inside. Will Anderson is a Von Miller, Micah Parsons hybrid prospect. So, and I could maybe be talked into go with Will Anderson if what you're going to do is move Cameron Thomas into that 3 technique, to play across from Zach Allen. I don't mind that, right? But those are the only 2 players I feel like taking in the top 5 is Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. Any other thoughts? I think we're going to probably get out of here soon. It's I know it's kind of a holiday week and stuff, but any thoughts before we get out of here, Aaron?
I don't think I have any. It's just been nice for once to be back on a day where I don't got to be, back at the at the school, crack of dawn, and for my Wi-Fi to actually hold up. So this has been good.
Nice. Well, it's been good having you here, Aaron. I miss the band, being together, and it's good to have you back together. You're also writing for AZ Sports Underground with us as well. So, we got Kyler Bird, Aaron Van Buren, and myself all together on AZ Sports Underground. So make sure you check out his Aaron's stuff there. Follow him on Twitter, AVB Sports. Links in the comments or the description below. We're going to get out of here, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to get going with Mock Draft Monday soon, though. And again, if you're interested in one of the T-shirts, send me a message in Discord. And I hope everyone has a great new year. And if you're going to that Atlanta game, make sure you message me in Discord. Let me know, because I'm going to be there. Would love to catch up with folks at the game. Maybe, get a picture or something of us hanging out, something during the game. So thank you everyone for hanging out with us for TCR Live. We're going to get out of here. I'm going to do my shout outs. Before we get out of here, anything you want to say, Aaron?
Just no matter how bad the football gets, just enjoy it, because before you know it, the games we have are going to be decreasing, and then we'll have nothing to watch but basketball, the AFL, and then the XFL. Who knows? USFL, whatever's coming back this year. So live it up, soak it up, the football. Just hope for good games, and then we will really get back into it. After at least we'll do the mock draft Mondays, but then we'll really pick it up once the Super Bowl ends. So enjoy your football, enjoy your New Year's, whatever you celebrate, and Joe, I hope you enjoy the game in that huge stadium they have down there.
Thank you. I'm planning on going down there with a good friend of mine and one of his friends, so it'll be good. So, all right, everyone, I'm gonna do the shout outs for the channel members. Thanks everyone who supports this channel, and we will see y'all next time. Peace.
See you guys.